All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on with our availability today at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We are now joined by Jeff Gordon, driver of the number 24 Drive to End Hunger Chevrolet, and by Jerry Gappens, Executive Vice President and General Manager of New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Jerry has a brief presentation for Jeff, and then we'll head right into media availability.
Jeff, on behalf of all of us at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, we're really excited about your record consecutive start that you're going to make here on Sunday for the Sylvania 300. And for me, it's a little more personal. I've known Jeff for a long time. In fact, my parents promoted the Terre Haute Action Track in Indiana, and Jeff won a prestigious midget race at the time called the Hut 100. And back in the early 1990s. And so to be standing here a few years later and to recognize a milestone in our sport is really gratifying for me, and I appreciate all the things you've done for our sport and certainly being a great ambassador. But what I really like is you got that short track background. You haven't forgotten that. Guys like Raleigh, and then I was talking to John Bickford, your stepfather, the other day, and there's a cool story in today's paper about the poison ivy. That's the only thing that stopped him since he started racing in 1986. He made a mistake, like most race car drivers don't make mistake by doing housework and yard work, and he did that, and he got poison ivy, and he couldn't go run. The paper didn't tell you where, but it was Villa, Indiana. Your dad remembers all those places, yeah. So imagine, the big significant part was he started in November of 92 when Petty's last race was happening. It was Jeff's first, and I think about that, and you think about being in this business and pretty high-risk business where injury can happen, and to not miss a day at work for all those years and all those starts is very impressive, and I'm glad you're doing it here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. So on behalf of our entire team, I have a presentation to acknowledge this is made out of the granite. You're in the granite state. We don't have iron here, but we got granite, so I just wanted to hand this. It says Jeff Gordon, Iron Man, and just congratulating him on your record-setting 789th start here, and it happens at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And then the other thing, we did a commemorative coin. It's got our 25th anniversary on the back, and then it's got your car number to commemorate the date, and I gave some of those to John to give to your team. Yeah, so thank you.
Already been seeing these from the fans, so thank you very much. Well, Jerry, thank you. I wouldn't say I didn't miss a day of work. If you talk to a few of my crew chiefs, they might disagree that I missed maybe a day or so of work, but never miss a race, and it means a lot to me to do this weekend. Of course, I'm a little bit superstitious. I'd rather talk about this after we actually take the green on Sunday. But this track has meant a lot to me over the years. I came here before I was in Cup, and to be a part of those first days here at New Hampshire, and how this track really changed the face of NASCAR in many ways, and attracted so many of the fans that we already knew existed up here in the Northeast, but took it to a whole nother level, and then to see their avidness still be so passionate about what we do, and when we come up here and see the great crowds, means a lot, and I've had some great success on the track here as well, so I look forward to getting that green flag on Sunday, and thank you very much for the award.
We'll put a bubble around you until then.
Yes, please do. Actually, if you just want to put the bubble around me throughout the whole race, I'd be happy with that.
All right, we'll go ahead and continue with media availability. Jeff, you touched a little bit on the Ironman milestone and what New Hampshire means to you. Moving forward, looking at the chase, coming off race number 1 of the Challenger round, talk about your outlook for this weekend.
Well, obviously, that was the most laps I think we've led, other than maybe at Martinsville this entire year. Certainly the most we've led on a mile and a half. So very encouraged with the team's efforts and the race car, and so much about what we do out there, especially as drivers, is having confidence, but also throughout the team, crew chief, you got to have confidence. And these last couple of weeks have built our confidence up. That's been knocked down this year. Richmond was one of our most solid races that we put together all year long. If you just look at pit road and restarts and just the way the car ran, the adjustments, communication, and then to follow that up with Chicago and that strong of a race car, even though it didn't end the way we wanted it to, our confidence is high, and that's going to help us this weekend. The the qualifying run that we made looked pretty good. So we've got to get through qualifying and see how we can evaluate what we have for tomorrow. But when we hit it at this track, anything is possible for us, and we feel like we're peaking at the right time. Certainly, doing it in the chase, in the beginning of the chase, is important. But we can't afford to have things happen like what happened, on that last restart. I can't do that here on Sunday with 10 to go. So, lesson learned, hopefully.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Please state your name and affiliation. We'll start up front with Jared and then go to Bob.
Jared Turner, FoxSports.com. Jeff, I'm wondering, looking at the incident last weekend with Jimmy and Kevin, if Kevin had hit you, would you have hit him back? And then my other question is, what's your understanding of NASCAR's policy on closed fists? Because in the past we've seen guys be penalized for throwing punches, but a penalty was not.
Did he hit him? I wouldn't call that a hit. You call that a hit?
You don't think so?
I thought it was a kind of a shove hit.
Yeah, maybe so. It was a closed fist, but
Okay.
wanted to get your take on NASCAR's policy. And
I wouldn't call that a hit.
Okay.
But I don't know what their policy is. I have no idea what their policy is. Don't want to know.
Okay.
I wasn't in that situation, so
Okay.
you don't know how you're going to react in those situations until you're in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all agree that maybe Jimmy should wait a little bit longer before he approached Kevin on that one. But I think when I look at Jimmy, his sincerity of trying to patch things up with somebody I believe he respects on the track and try to at least give his side of it is admirable. It just maybe was off on the timing. And then I go to the flip side of Kevin. I can completely understand the frustration and anger that would be built up in a situation like that. I can't see where he did anything wrong. He tried to restart and didn't get as good a restart as he wanted, and somebody got inside of him, and he's holding his ground, and they made contact. It was a racing incident, in my opinion, but it reminds me of the incident that I had with Keselowski last year, where the guy's just being aggressive and making a move, and that's all fine and good right up until your tire blows, and then you need to understand the consequences or the level of anger that's going to be built from that, especially if it takes you out of the chase. And that's why I reacted the way I reacted, and I'm sure that's probably the reason why Kevin reacted the way he did.
Yeah. And just to follow up, do you think the points leader at the end of the regular season should get some kind of bonus?
I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
I've always felt that way. I mean, to me, we're not giving near enough credit to somebody who's led the points for 26 weeks that they deserve. That is a very, very difficult thing to accomplish, and I think it needs to be rewarded in more ways than it is now.
All right, we'll go to Bob, Drew, and then Mike Vega.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. Obviously, looking at the Ironman streak, during your first couple of years of Cup racing, did you have any idea that you could go this long and not miss a race?
No, I mean, it's not anything that I really thought about a whole lot. I think now, looking to see where I am and looking back on it, I recognize my commitment, and my commitment has been there for many, many years, long before I ever even got into the Cup Series. You have to understand, if you're a sprint car racer, you're racing 100 times a year. So coming into the Cup level, and racing 30 times a year, now 38 times a year, and it's a lot more work that goes into 38 weeks than what went into 100 races in a sprint car. But still, to me, if there was a race and I was scheduled to do it, then I was going to do everything that I could to be healthy and to be focused and to give it 100%. And I think just by having that mindset and that effort, that's what got me here. It's not that I was looking at, hey, I want to set an Ironman record or anything like that. I honestly, when I remember when Ricky Rudd did that, and Terry Labonte and other guys that had these incredible records and streaks, I thought, man, they are old. I'll never be around long enough to set that record or do anything and achieve that. and now here I am, so I'm old too, but now I appreciate what those guys did and the effort that they put into it and the commitment.
All right, we'll go to Drew and then over to Mike.
Jeff, Drew Bonner from the Concord Monitor. Can you just talk about your approach for these races? I mean, do you think, do you look at it race by race, we need to do this at Chicago, we need to do this at Loudon, we need to do this at Dover, or is it more in general, what's working, what isn't, and does that change from the first 26 races of the season?
Man, nothing's ever changed for me for the last 39 years, however long I've been racing. I mean, you go out and you try to make the car go as fast as you can, and now that it's such a team sport at this level, you communicate the best you can of what you're feeling inside the car back to the crew chief and the team to make adjustments to try to make the car go faster. And then once the green flag drops, your role is to get the most out of it, not to make mistakes. That's to me what the other guys' role on the team is as well. And so that's never changed, and the approach somewhat changes in how we have meetings and debriefs and talk about cars and how the crew chiefs are planning out the schedule of cars for what tracks and wind tunnel testing and computer simulation and some of those things. I think their job continues to get harder and harder and harder. I think the competition on the track gets tougher and tougher, so that part of the job maybe has changed slightly, but how I go about it has never changed for over all the years. I've never, unless I had a big lead in the points under the old format, and I was like, okay, we just got to survive here, get past this, have a good finish here, do this, and I hate racing like that. You're protecting and all that. It was a terrible way to go about it, and every time we ever did, I felt like we only lost points instead of just going out there saying we got to win. If we can't win, we get the best finish we can. And to me, that's what you have to do every week throughout the chase.
All right, we'll go to Mike.
Jeff, Mike Vega, Boston Globe. As you look at that beautiful trophy there, you reflect upon that and its meaningfulness to you, how closely intertwined that is with this track, it being the 25th anniversary, and you being the only guy who's in this field who started every single race here. When you think about that accomplishment, I mean, how special does it become, your relationship with this track?
Well, it's just not just the track. The track is certainly significant. When I think back to throughout my career, we've had some big wins here and big moments here, and I think it's contributed towards success I've had in this sport. So, and I've always enjoyed it. And I'm happy that it's happening here. This is a cool track, and I just, to me, looking back throughout my career, I never planned for this. I never thought about it a whole lot. But now, as I've gotten closer to it, I remember talking to some people within my team over the last, I think maybe last year, when you start getting closer to that number, then you start recognizing the significance of it, and then the wow factor comes in going, wow, I like stats. I mean, stats are good, especially when they're wins and top fives and in polls and championships. This is not a stat that I ever thought about, but now that I've reached it, I'm thinking about it a lot, and I think it's one of the most significant stats that I have.
I know that the track has some special planned, with the pre-race where they're going to give you a duck boat tour of the track. A, have you ever driven one of those things? And B, do you want to get behind the wheel?
I like to drive. I like to drive about anything and everything, but on Sunday I'm going to leave that up to somebody else, and I'm looking forward to driving that 24 car, hopefully to Victory Lane.
All right, we'll go to Jamie, Dustin, and finish up with Holly.
Jamie Staten from WMUR-TV. Along the same lines of looking back at your career, can you just name one or two specific memories, good or bad, that jump into your mind right away?
Well, when you have a stat like this and an award like this, then what starts to happen is you go, what were the close calls, right? What were the weekends that it almost didn't happen? Obviously last year at Charlotte was one that comes to mind. I mean, when I think of what I went through in 24 hours to make sure that I could get in the car on Sunday, I think that certainly stands out in my mind when I'm laying on a table and they're injecting, big long needles into my back so that I could race on Sunday. When you look back on it, you go, that's kind of crazy. Why did I do that? I probably didn't need to do that, but I did because I wanted to be in the race car. When I think back of some big wrecks that I had, like at Pocono, at Texas, especially the Texas one, because that was pre-safer barriers and Hans devices and carbon fiber seats and the seat belts that we have now. I feel very fortunate to have survived that wreck in the way that I did, and to only come out of it with bruised ribs and be able to still race, even though I was in pain at Bristol 2 weeks after that. I don't think had I not had that weekend off after that race, I don't think that I would have been able to make the next race. So that was a close call as well. And I went through a little pain at Bristol, but seemed to be okay once the green flag dropped. Those are the moments that stand out to me.
All right, we'll go to Dustin and then Holly.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Jeff, you talked about your incident at Texas last year with Brad. How did you guys drive differently, if at all, after that, or at some point, or if you did something different with Boyer from a couple years ago? And how might, although it's two different individuals, how might things be different for Jimmy and Kevin if they're together on the track? What might that be like?
Yeah, I don't know if those guys have spoken or what's going to happen, but they're I don't know. I think when you've done that, you certainly and I'll use a better example, in my opinion, which is me and Martin Truex Jr. I crashed him at Sonoma. I don't know how long ago this was, 3 years ago or something. It was completely my fault. I had Juan Pablo Montoya attacking me into a braking zone. I moved down to block him. I looked up my mirror to see if I was going to clear him, and I overshot the corner. I hit Martin Truex and took him out. I felt bad about it. I texted him. I talked to him, and he refused, to talk to me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It was my role, I felt like, from that point on for a certain period of time, to race him as clean and respectful as I possibly can to earn his trust back in me, and for him to recognize what I had done was a mistake, and that's not who I am. That's not how I go about it. And it was about a year and a half later at Bristol. I remember racing him for like second or third down to the wire, and I finally went up to him after that race, and I said, now, Martin, I hope you will agree I have done everything that I know possible to earn your trust back and make you realize that I messed up. I admit it, and but I cannot continue to race you as clean as I've been racing you if it's for a second or for a win. I'm going to have to lean on you a little bit here and there. And he didn't respond too much, but I think he got it. I'm just giving you an example. That's one, that's the way I would handle that situation. As far as Brad's concerned, I get he was racing hard for he was desperate. He had to win that race in order to move on, and he was racing for that. And I'll throw in that fact. I have no problem with that. What I had a problem with is that my left rear tire was cut down in at that time, and I missed the chase basically because of that. And I'm going to hold on to that until Homestead. I mean, that's so that's the way it works. That's I'm not saying that I owe him that or a payback, but if I'm in the same situation, I can guarantee I'm going to do exactly the same thing that he did, and I'm not going to think twice about what it does to him. I'm not searching for that. It's there. I have no idea how Kevin and Jimmy are going to handle that situation.
And that's different too, I'm guessing, because I haven't talked to Jimmy yet, but in your example of Mark, you said, look, I was to blame.
Right.
I'm guessing Jimmy doesn't necessarily feel he's as much to blame in that incident, so he might not feel the same way to be.
You have to ask Jimmy and Kevin about that. I cannot speak for them.
All right, we'll finish up with Holly.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. It's funny that you say that about Ricky and Terry. They seem so old. I talked to Ricky Rudd yesterday, and he said, "My God, Jeff seems so young to have done this." just to kind of put a ribbon on this, you have so many accomplishments and so many favorable statistics and things like that. What do you put this record? Do you ultimately think it was a matter of your longevity, of your toughness, of your, and maybe, you know, not so much an effort because that's just the commitment that you had to it. It wasn't something that you had to work at so hard because you were committed to doing it. What do you ultimately think when you think of this record? Why did you?
Well, I mean, one of the first thing pops to my mind is the decision to go to Hendrick. You know, to make a decision to go to an organization that has provided the kind of equipment that they provided me. You know, I never had to think twice about whether I was going to have a ride. It was how good of a performance or result are we going to get that day. I've never had to worry about whether we have a sponsor or not. We've always, you know, been very secure in that instance. So, you know, there's plenty of people that have put a lot of effort into it, but maybe just hadn't had the fortunate circumstances that I've had over the years. So that's one of the things that stands out to me. But when I think of, and I don't know, you know, I think there. I was talking to Matt Kenseth about. I think he's next in line, but he's several hundred behind me. You know, I'll be curious. I don't know the full significance of this in today's more modern era versus, say, with Ricky. I certainly didn't go through what Ricky did. I mean, the things that he did to make it into a race makes my needles in my back look like nothing. But I'm curious to see what happens with the more modern era, you know, of safer cars, safer racetracks, and how that affects what drivers do in the future. Will they not race as long and they don't get to it, or will they blow this number out of the water and it won't even be significant? I don't know.
All right, Jeff, thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good luck this weekend.